So, welcome everyone to Psalms for Life, in which we explore a different chapter of Psalms each week. And I want to thank Esther Elagorovich for sponsoring this class. It should be a merit for her and a source of merit and bracha for her and her family. And this class should be for the dedicated to the safety and protection of Klal Yisrael and the soldiers Aiden ben Tamar, Nir ben Nurit, and Yehuda ben Livnat. And at the end of the class, when we say Tehillim, people will be able to put in their own names that we can all say Tehillim for together. So the segula for Psalm 42, I've decided to give all the ones I could find this time. Usually I give one, but I think that they're so easy to read into the Psalm, it's important. The main segula is that this is a prayer for the end of our exile. And it's not just our national exile as the Jewish people, but also the spiritual exile of each of us individually. So it's an important segula for that, and hopefully you'll see why as we go forward. It's also a segula if a person had some kind of position, some kind of status that was important, and they lost it, and this person was floundering and not sure what to do. Okay, we can think, if we think deeply, we see how this relates to exile. It's a segula for that. And then finally, it's a segula to find favor, to find grace, chen, in the eyes of others. And it's so important that we daven for this, because if we want to be a light unto the nations and make a Kiddush Hashem wherever we go, to Jews and non-Jews, we need to have a quality of chen, a quality of grace and graciousness. And this is something we can work on as well, but it's also a God-given gift. Now, I'm going to begin with an introduction to this psalm. So I think this is personally just one of the most beautiful, moving psalms there is. It's the fourth psalm of Tikkun HaKlali, and like Psalm 41, which we did last week, and if you haven't seen it, you can watch it on my YouTube channel. It refers to 4 types of healing song, and this week these types of healing song are different. This time the songs are Nitzuach, Maskil, Shir, and Tefillah, and you will find those words embedded in this psalm. And it's a psalm with a tremendous power of salvation, from personal exile, national exile, and so on. It's also the first psalm in book 2 of Sefer Tehillim. The first 8 psalms in book 2 of Sefer Tehillim are attributed to the sons of Korach, who are Asir, Elkanan, and Avi Asaph. This is interesting because we know Korach fomented a rebellion against Moshe Rabbeinu. He felt that he could be as great a leader as Moshe. And also, so he really was against the tzaddikim. And also Korach applied his own thinking to the law. He wanted to revise, and he was the forerunner of the reform movement. He wanted to change the Torah. He didn't like it. It didn't make sense to him. He wanted to do it his way. Okay. However, his sons, who initially were with him in the rebellion, they all did tshuva, and therefore they are praised, and their descendants also became quite great. And we'll talk about that later on. I'll talk a little bit about it. Now, Shmuel Hanavi, Samuel the prophet, was Korach's descendant. And Shmuel's grandson was Haman HaEzrachi, and we'll read in Psalms coming up, Haman, you'll see the name that he is mentioned. And he and his 14 sons were the center of the choir of Levium, because remember, Korach was a Levi, the choir in the Beit HaMikdash, in the Holy Temple, chosen by David. So Korach, who was a Rasha, who was not a great guy, his descendants were in fact great men. So it's it really shows us that we are all responsible for our own actions, and that as much as people try to raise their children one way or the other to conform with their beliefs, children are individuals. They have minds of their own, and they'll grow up and they will do themselves what is right. Obviously, we should start them off on the right foot. Now, let me see. Okay. So the Vilna Gaon says this is the song of the day for the second day of Sukkot. And the Simchat Beit HaShoeva began on this day, and that's the festival of water drawing. And as we go through this psalm, you will hear that there are many references to water and hints, allusions to the temple festivals throughout the psalm, and even a verse that's more specifically about this water festival. Now, just as an aside, every day of Sukkot, every day of Chol HaMoed Sukkot, we have parties, we have festivals, music, dance, every evening actually, and sometimes in the daytime too, in order to celebrate this water drawing festival, which we can no longer celebrate. And our sages tell us that you have never seen joy until you've seen the joy of Simchas Beis HaShoeva. Okay, so it's a very great simcha. All right, and we'll learn why, all the hints woven throughout this psalm. As a matter of fact, there's so much packed into here. We could spend a month on it, but we don't have that much time, so I'll get started. All right. Lamnatseach maskil livnei Korach, for the conductor, a maskil for the sons of Korach. So, as I mentioned before, that this is written and composed by Korach's sons. However, the Radak says no. It was actually written and composed by David, and he's mentioning Korach's sons in this and the other 7 psalms in the beginning of book 2, because they're the ones who are performing them. They're singing them. Still, other commentators, which is quite interesting, they say that King David, found manuscripts by Korach's sons, which contain the nucleus of these and other psalms. And so the psalms are attributed to them, but David, in his masterful style, redacted, revised, and rewrote them to make them sing, to make them prophecy. Okay, so that is the beginning of the psalm. We'll go on to base to verse 2. Ayal ta'arog al afike mayim, ein nafshi sa'arog elecha Elohim. A heart, okay, a deer longs for brooks of water. So my soul longs for you, Hashem. That's one of the most beautiful verses in Sefer Tehillim, in my opinion. So there's an analogy going on that as the deer thirsts, so thirsty for water, but longs for a brook, a stream, a spring, our hearts are yearning for a stream of Hashem, a spring of Hashem, and we'll talk about that. So Rebbe Nachman says that this longing that we feel Okay, sometimes we don't know why we have a yearning. Some people attribute it to the yearning to travel. Some people attribute it to something else. Everybody has a yearning. But what that yearning is, if the vessel is built for it, is a yearning to come closer to Hashem. And this longing can bring forth a heartfelt, oh, Hashem, a heartfelt cry. And when we cry out to Hashem, very interesting, says Rebbe Nachman and Reb Nassim, we are able to tap into the waters of good advice. What are the waters of good advice? So the Torah is compared to water. So the teachings of Torah, of our tzaddikim, of our sages, we're able to tap into it when we really yearn for it. And when we do that, our emunah grows. So next time you have a vague discomfort, a sense that something's missing, it might not be that you need to get in the car and go shopping. It might not be that there's a person missing in your life. It might be. Ultimately, the ultimate deep, deep yearning is our soul yearning for Hashem. Now, Rashi says something amazing, and we're going to speak about this in a little bit of depth here. So he says the word for deer or heart, okay, some say it's the word for gazelle, is ayal. And not ayala, which is a feminine, but ayal, which is masculine. But the verb, the case doesn't agree. The verb is ta'arog, is feminine. Why not use ayala then? What's going on? So Rav Hirsch has an answer, simple answer, the pshat, because the deer is thirsty, he is weak and therefore feminine. I'm sure that's not going to fly well with everybody here. But femininity is Kabbalistically a state of being receptive and waiting to receive, which can loosely be understood as a kind of weakness. Okay, so the Radak and the Mara Mercado, who I haven't heard of before, says that the heart, the deer, swallows poisonous snakes, apparently by mistake, which causes heat and thirst. What is a snake? So they say that the snake symbolizes the poisonous hatred of Edom, Esav, and Yishmael, that we have to swallow to endure. When I first read this, I had chills. Okay, I read this on Shabbos and I was like, so blown away. I wanted to write it down. I couldn't. It was Shabbos, but I was so blown away. Because this idea is, so very often we have to just take it. It's so overwhelming, this hatred. What are we going to do? We're going to fight this way. We're going to fight that way. We're going to daven. We're going to say to him. Sometimes we have to say, this is from Hashem. It's poison. Hashem, take it out from me. Okay? We have to cry out. All right, now, Rashi says something amazing, okay? He said a lot of amazing things throughout this psalm. He says that the heart, the deer, is very kind and cares about others. And that when she is thirsty, what does she do? Instead of putting her nose into the ground, sipping a little bit of spring water that's coming up, she takes her horns or her antlers, okay? She digs them into the ground so that other animals too can now access this water. And she screams out, she cries out with thirst, and the water comes up. Okay, so this is quite amazing. It's quite amazing imagery. So what's going on here? So the Al-Sheikh says that the ayal is very thirsty, but leads other animals to water because she's such a good heart. Okay, and remember in the beginning, the heart of the deer, there's no real pun there, but there is a pun in English, but not in Hebrew. The heart is akin to our heart. The deer is akin to our heart. So the H-A-R-T is akin to our H-E-A-R-T. So what does this mean? Dalshi says it's the same as the Jews who daven for Mashiach. Why do we daven for Mashiach? Just to save the Jews? No, we actually don't. We daven for Mashiach to save the Jews and also for the sake of the entire world. We want the whole world to know Hashem, as all our prophets tell us. The world will be covered with the knowledge of Hashem. So it's not just the Jews, with the 0.0 whatever percent of the population we are. Of course, we want to be rescued. It's primary. We've got to get out of this terrible situation, this terrible exile of Edom and Yishmael joining forces to hate us. But at the same time, we generally care about the world very, very much, which is why Jews do so many good things in the world, not just spiritually, but materially. We're a force for good, okay? The force that opposes us is the force for evil. Now, this commentary, this is from the Gemara. The Ayala has a very narrow birth canal, and childbirth is very painful. She cries out 70 cries, which are the equivalent of the number of words in Psalm 20. And also, I noted the 70 nations, okay? And by the way, also, Schechter also, I think, comments on this. So she cries out 70 cries, and I think it's one time for each of the nations. I don't know, I'm reading into it. And when she does, Hashem sends her a snake. And the Talmud and everybody else is in agreement. Whatever this means, they're not in agreement, but they say that the snake bites the Ayala at the entrance to her womb, widening the canal, enabling her to give birth. So obviously this is mystical. It's perhaps a metaphor. What is this? So Rav Schechter asks, what happens if these two events come at the same time? And he answers, at that moment, she forgets about her pain and takes on the role of a male and ensures that there's drinking water enough for everyone, okay? So the snake, the bite of the snake has a part in this whole bizarre yet powerful imagery going on here. So here's how I understand this. Okay, I'm not going to foist this on someone else. This is my own understanding. Okay, so I read this as totally messianic. The Torah is compared to water. Torah helps us understand and cope with the hatred of the 70 nations. Torah slakes our thirst. When we learn Torah, the teachings of the tzaddikim, and how we are supposed to make sense of what's going on in this world, it's amazing what happens. We are calmer because we understand. We're not panicking. Our thirst, so to speak, is slaked, is relieved. Also, I think that the snake is reference to the Nachash, okay? So the Nachash, the serpent in the Garden of Eden. And the snake is from Gracious, okay, from Genesis in the Garden of Eden, and is very evil. And the bite of evil is necessary to broaden our way before us so that we can give birth through our prayers, through teshuvah, through our yearning, to the Geula and the coming of Mashiach. Does everybody understand that? Okay. Again, the snake, the bite of the snake is actually necessary for the next step in the process. Now, as I wrote in my book, Mashiach, Hope for Turbulent Times, the snake is Gematria 358, and Mashiach is Gematria 358. So Mashiach, what's he going to do? He's going to turn that negative 358. He's going to reverse that whole process of the snake biting the heart and the womb, okay? He's going to reverse that, and he's going to nullify the evil 358, and he's going to turn the negative into the positive. He's literally going to rectify it. Now, the snake pushes us into exile initially. Okay, initially, that's what the snake did in Gan Eden, the serpent. He pushed Adam and Eve into exile. He kicked them out. It was his fault. Okay. He pushes us into exile. He is necessary during the exile to keep reminding us that we're in exile, we're in pain. Okay, we shouldn't get too comfortable. We should cry out. And Mashiach is going to take us out of exile and provide a rectification, a tikkun, a healing for that snake energy. Okay. So what is the snake energy? So this is my understanding of all of this, but Rebbe Nachman does explain what this snake energy is in a few different ways. So it can be immorality, the desire for immorality for sure, but it can also be depression. The bite of the snake causes depression and a confused mind, which lead us to dark places emotionally and physically. We see the world around us, we get confused by it. We forget that it's temporary, material. It's not eternal. Mashiach isn't here yet either. It looks good. It looks pretty. You look at the holiday decorations of the nations. Gorgeous, gorgeous, sparkly, pretty colors. Okay. And then you look at our tiny little menorah, okay, which has to be set down below 10 tefachim. Okay. It's set low down. All right. Okay, we don't put our menorahs up high. It's low down and we light it because the light of Hanukkah is able to come down into the lowest depths of the world, brings the Shekhinah down very low. Okay. And it lights up all the darkness and confusion, depression, and the desires for things that are unhealthy for us. Now, normally I take comments at the end, but Doris has a very good comment that I want to say. She says the gazelle is the only animal that can run quickly forward while looking backwards. So we know that Ayel is often translated as a gazelle, antelope, gazelle. So that's a very interesting. And thank you, Doris, because I think I never knew that about a gazelle. I think that also has an important lesson for us about being able to go forward, but not forgetting to look backwards as we're rushing to the Geula. Really, really beautiful. Okay. So I was thinking about this all Shabbos. I was driving me crazy. I really wanted to write this down and I couldn't write it down. But anyway, so now we have an understanding of the messianic nature of that passage. And again, the language is absolutely beautiful. Let's continue. And we are going to run late today, but I really want to finish this psalm today. Okay. This next verse, people may know it as a nigun, as a song. People sing this. Okay. So I'm going to begin. Sama nafshi lelohim le'el chai masai avo ve'era penei Elohim. Okay. My soul thirsts for God, for the living God. When will I come and appear before God? Okay, so it mentions God 3 times. Okay, and people take parts of that verse or sing the whole verse. There's some other songs like that too. So this whole Sama'a nafshi, my soul thirsts. My soul's thirsty. Okay. So Rashi says during the exile of Bavel, the Babylonian exile, the people cried out, as in Isaiah's prophecy about the saving power of Torah. Hoi kol sama lechui lamai. Hoi, everyone who thirsts, go to water. Okay. So what is that? So that's everyone who's thirsty. Your soul's yearning. Go to Torah. Torah's water. Go to the tzaddikim, okay? Because the tzaddikim are the springs and the brooks and the streams that come from the Torah. They make it accessible. You can't drink from the top of the iceberg. You have to wait for the springs and the rivulets and the streams in order to drink from it. Okay, Rav Hirsch says, for the living God means our souls crave the truly living God, the only God who is alive, not lifeless idols. Rashi asks, I have to do all these comments, sorry, it's just really beautiful. And I skipped a lot, so I just chose some choice ones. Rashi asks, when will I appear before God? When will we be able to ascend to Yerushalayim and do the 3 festivals at the Beit HaMikdash? Can you imagine everybody streaming in for Pesach and Shavuot and Sukkot, streaming in from all over to celebrate the 3 festivals? So Rashi says David here is revealing a prophecy about the 3 nations who disrupted the service in the Beit HaMikdash. Bavel, Yavan, and Edom, okay? Babylon, Greece, and Rome. And at the time that Israel cries out, Hashem saved them, and will save us now, okay? Because remember, that hadn't happened yet. We weren't exiled yet when David made this prophecy, okay? Now, we can read this, appearing before God as being seen before the face of God. And that is during the 3 festivals, Israel could see Hashem's presence in the Beit HaMikdash and be seen by God. So how? So we have to yearn for this. If we don't think and yearn and desire to experience Hashem's presence, if we don't do that, we won't really experience it. We're going to have a veiled experience, okay? So it's like Rebbe Nachman says, okay? He always says, if you look for hashgacha pratis, if you look for divine providence, you will see it. But you've got to look for it. Okay? This is not wishful thinking. It's yearning, looking. I know that what I see isn't the only stuff out there. Okay, this the table, the chairs, the bills, piles of bills on the desk. This isn't the only stuff out there. Okay, what's out there is something I have to yearn for. That's really where Amunah clicks in as well. Now, we'll continue with, I'm going to keep some comments brief. Hayisali dimasi lechem yomam v'layla be'emor alai kol hayom ayeh elo necha. My tears were my bread, my sustenance, bread day and night, when they say to me all day long, where is your God? Okay, so when the people out there who've joined forces, Esav and Yishmael, say, where's your God now? Okay, where is he now? Okay, so I cry so much it becomes my sustenance. Some more comments we don't have time for. We're going to go to Hey to 5. Ela es kara ve'eshpecha alai nafshi ki e'avor basach adadem ad beis Elohim bikol rina v'soda hamon chogeg. These things I remember, and I will pour out my plight, my soul within me. How I passed on or walked with the throng, the crowd, walking gingerly with them until the house of God, with joyous song and thanks, a celebrating multitude. So what's going on here? So it's interesting because it's a remembering, very interesting, which usually implies the past. And David here is saying, I'm going to cry out about the time where I came with the crowd and walked step by step with them gingerly until we reached the Beit HaMikdash with joyous song and thanks, gratitude, and the crowd celebrates. So Israel's crying because I'm in exile, okay? I'm in exile. I thought was interesting to take it down to the personal level, because my body rebels against Hashem, does what it wants, and it refuses to engage in mitzvahs that are uncomfortable. Therefore, I pour out my soul in order to fill my body with a new spirit of holiness, with a new spirit that makes me want to come closer to Hashem, okay? So Helene asks, why walking gingerly? So I think it's because it's crowded, okay? I really looked for an answer to that. I think it's because it's crowded. They're walking on stones, step by step. Maybe that's why. They don't want to, maybe they don't want to step on anyone else. Remember, the heart, the ayal is so kind. Okay. I don't know if that's the real answer, but that's the best I can do. Rav Hirsch says the throng, the crowd, okay, is a very, very interesting. Okay, the sach. This can be read as the word partitions, dividers, or barriers. So Rav Hirsch says that when Israel, Jewish people, remembers its ancient glory, when we remember the unity of the Jewish people, when the entire nation went up to the festivals together to Yerushalayim at the Beit HaMikdash, he says, we're remembering this, and the partitions were gone. What does he mean? He says Jews from all walks of life went up, and I'm going to quote, and all barriers and partitions were nullified and transcended by our unity. What are the barriers? This is where I want to quote: social status, wealth, abilities and skills, professions and occupations. These are the things that normally divide people, which I think is so interesting. I never really thought about social structures or social constructs, as they call them today, that divide people. But here they are: status, wealth, abilities and skills, and professions and occupations. Okay. So if the barriers are down, we can see everybody clearly. We're not going to put them in a category. Okay. We know there were 12 tribes. We know when the Red Sea was divided, it was divided, says the Midrash, into 12 lanes, and each tribe had its own lane. And those divisions, okay, are necessary because they connoted a different service of Hashem, or they determined, actually, not connoted, they determined a different service of Hashem. These divisions, they have nothing really to do with our service of Hashem and our development. We can use our talents and our abilities, our wealth, and so on, occupations, and so on, to serve Hashem, but these aren't necessarily innate. Okay, now we'll continue. So kind of radical, Rav Hirsch. Okay, when you think about it, you think today, this whole multi-cult and all of that, and this whole idea that there are no divisions except the people you hate, like the Jews, and those people are divided. Anybody who believes in God, okay, but everybody else has no divisions, no divisions. The truth is that is actually, hang on, because I'm not saying I'm a communist or anything, but that is actually a messianic idea. It's such an ideal, but it can't happen in this world. It has to happen only after Mashiach comes, in the way future after he comes, where the divisions really are nullified. Okay. But for the Jews, the divisions are nullified during the Yom Tovim, during the festivals, when we serve Hashem together. Okay. Ma tishtochachi nafshi v'tehemi alai chochili lelohim ki od odenu yeshuos panav. Okay. Why are you downcast, my soul? And why are you disturbed? Why do you stir within me? hope to Hashem or anticipate Hashem, okay? For I shall yet thank him for the salvation of his presence. So here the psalmist is saying, my soul is so stricken with grief that Mashiach isn't here, and we aren't able to go to the Beis HaMikdash. We're downcast. Rashi says, Ma tishtochachi, why are you downcast? Appears 3 times, okay? It appears in this psalm twice, in verse 6 and verse 12, and in Psalm 43, verse 5. Next week, we'll take a look at it. And it corresponds again to the 3 nations. There's a lot about this that subjugated Israel and made them downcast. Bavel, Yavan and Edom, Babylon, Greece, and Rome. So why are they downcast? Because that's when the Jews didn't have a Beit HaMikdash during those 3 subjugations. We know there were 4, but during those 3. That's why we couldn't cope, okay? Now, another reason is that the psalmist here, another interpretation is that David here is chastising his own soul for being selfish. It's like, why are you downcast? You're only worried about your own salvation. You're not worried about Hashem, whose glory isn't revealed in this world. And you're not upset that people are talking bad about him and his people. Today, we see they're very upset that people are talking bad about the Jews. It's painful, especially because it's so undeserved. And I think, I think that we can take the time to join this to this feeling that we have this shame. It's horrible what people are saying. And we can join that to that shameful, horrible feeling, really. And that's really what the root of the shame is because we're Hashem's people. So we're really feeling bad for Hashem. What's wrong with everybody out there? Okay, they don't see the glory of Hashem. We need to reveal it. That's a whole other subject. But it's a pain for us. All right, we're going to continue. Verse 7, sign. Elohai alai nafshi, sish tochach al kain ez karcha. Be'eretz Yarden, v'cher monim mehar mitzar. Okay. So this is did I yeah, okay, I'm on the right verse. Okay. My God, my soul is downcast upon me. It weighs heavily upon me. Therefore, I will remember you from the land of Yarden, the Jordan, and the peaks of Hermon from Mount Mitzar. Okay, so what is Mitzar? Some say it's Sinai, and some say it's the Temple Mount. There's a debate. Some say it's connected to Mount Hermon. Okay, we're going to continue. We don't have time to do that. Okay. Tehom el tehom, kore lekol sinorecha, kol mishparecha v'galecha alai avaru. Deep calls to deep, to like watery deep, tehom, depths of water, to the roar of your sinorecha, your water channels or your pipes, actually. Your breakers and waves pass over me. So the Maharsha says that this alludes to this is really another one of those deep ones, that this alludes to the water cycle from the heavens down to the earth and back again via evaporation. But specifically, as I said in the beginning, this is the verse that refers to the Simchas Beis HaShoeva, the water libation, the Nisuch Hamayim, the festival of this, when the water was poured, this Nisuch Hamayim was poured from the upper side of the temple down to descend to the Temple Mount to mingle with the waters of the land. Okay, this represents the upper celestial waters, okay, that were mingling with the lower terrestrial waters. And it shows the intertwined nature of these waters. Now we know that heaven and earth really are intertwined. They're categorized separately so that we can access different aspects of ourselves, our service of Hashem, and so on. But ultimately, everything's one because Hashem is one. So I just want to go over the language. A tzinur is a pipe or a channel. Okay. The mishbarecha, your breakers, the big crashing waves, that's what a breaker is. This refers to violent tragedies that are unrelenting, pouring over us. Okay, vigalecha, these refer to waves that are like a wheel. Okay, when you think about it, that's why it's galecha, which is like galagalaga, a cycle, a wheel, which is a constant flow. What is this constant flow? Amazing, amazing what he says. This refers to Jew hatred, anti-Semitism. It's constant. It's a constant wave. Okay, we think it only just popped up, but our sages tell us, come on, it's always been here. Sometimes the wave comes up and sometimes the wave comes down and we don't see it, but it's always there here. So I have more, but I don't know if I have enough time. So we're going to continue. What time is it? All right, let's try to get through as many as we can. Okay, this one is also so beautiful and interesting. We'll go to verse 9. Tess, Yomam Yitzave Adonai Chasto, Uvalayla Shiro Imi, Tefillah Le'el Chayai. Okay, so let dawn arrive, or day by day, it depends how you want to read this. May Hashem command his kindness, or Hashem will command his kindness, and by night his shir, okay, that's shiro, his song, is with me, a prayer to the God of my life. So what's saying here? Let the dawn of the Geula arrive, says Rashi. Hashem, shed your kindness and mercy on us already. We're ready, okay? The Talmud says that based on this verse, it bases on this verse this idea that Hashem, this is really incredible, engages in acts of chesed. By night, he listens to the songs of the holy heavenly angels. Okay. So in the day, Hashem engages by acts of chesed, day by day, every day. And at night, he listens to the songs of the holy heavenly angels. What's going on there? So the Zohar explains it. It says that Hashem creates angels to perform acts of chesed during the day. But at night, he created other angels to sing songs. It's all beautiful imagery. People who are able to learn Torah during the day and late into the night in purity, okay, so it's a factor here, okay, because it's so hard, are able to understand the secrets of the past and future. And I assume that's because they can hear the songs of the angels at night. The Zohar is short and cryptic, okay? So in other words, this is a prayer to the God of our lives, okay? And day and night, in one way or another, we have different ways to connect to Hashem, if we so choose to. Now, David Sears, Rabbi David Sears, in his wonderful book, it's Rebbe Nachman on Psalms. I think it's a Power of Psalms. He points out that the Zohar says day by day, okay, every day, not just day, every day, which refers to the lower seven sephirot, which correspond to the 7 days of creation, okay? His kindness, his chesed, is the first day, and that day accompanies all the other days since it's the first day. In other words, chesed is like a partner. It accompanies, it's a companion to all the other sephirot, and chesed is a companion to all the days of the week. Chesed comes first. Very beautiful. We are supposed to see Hashem as a role model, we ourselves should always put chesed first. Always yield to the point of kindness. Obviously, there are times we have to be strong and lead with gevurah, but that itself can come from chesed if you know what you're doing. All right, let's continue. Where are we? Okay, we're on 10. Omara el sali lama shechachtani lama koder elech belachatz oyev. I will say to Hashem, my rock, why have you forgotten me? Why should I walk in gloom because of the oppression of the enemy? No matter what, this verse is asking, why should I be gloomy and down? Why should I walk in gloom? Just because we have enemies out there. This is so key to what's going on right now, which is why in Breslov you will see people, and hopefully me included. I mean, I don't necessarily, haven't done necessarily a share specifically on this, but this idea of being joyous, even right now, when our enemies are oppressing us. Why should we walk about in gloom? Now, we may have natural guilt feelings. I actually was discussing with somebody, I don't remember who, if she's here or not, and I don't remember who I just was discussing this with. We naturally have guilt feelings. Sometimes I feel like, how can I be happy when there's hostages? I'm crying out with them a lot. I wake up in the morning after davening. First thing I want to know is please Hashem, may there have been no more deaths of soldiers. Please Hashem. Like I want to suffer. I want to, not like a martyrdom. I want to be with the Jewish people. And we're suffering right now. But at the same time, we can't let that destroy us. Why should we walk about in gloom? I'm taking this very literally because of the oppression of the enemy. We have God, okay? Doesn't mean, again, we're not going to cry, we're not going to grieve, we're not going to take positive action to help in many ways, whatever ways we can, okay? But I'm not going to be crushed by it. Why? Because that means the Yetzer Hara has won. Our depression means the Yetzer Hara has won. If you look at everybody in Israel, you will see, not everybody, many things are going around. Soldiers are dancing and singing on Shabbat. They know they're going into war. They're dancing and they're singing. People are putting on shows for the displaced Jews who are they're war refugees, displaced from their homes. They have to stay in hotels and bed and breakfasts and people's apartments and so on. They're putting on shows, not just for the children, for the adults, to lift their spirits. A Jew knows that being happy, even times of oppression, is important. Okay, we'll continue. Oh, okay, this one is also important. They're all important. Beretzach ba'atzmosai, cherfuni tzorai, ba'amaram elai kol hayom, aye Elohecha. Okay. So a retzach is a dagger. So with a murderous dagger in my bones are the taunts of my tormentors. By saying to me all day long, again with, where is your God? That's my words, again with, where is your God? Again with the where is your God? Look, you Jews, now even politically, you know, now even can't remember her name. I don't want to remember her name. Now what they were saying privately from our administration, now they're saying openly. Okay, the Jews are bad. Okay, they're killing their enemy who's out to destroy them. They're not allowed to do that. Okay. They were saying it all along privately to the Israeli politicians. Now the administration's saying it openly. Okay, it's like a slap in the face. Where is your God? We're in charge. They're so arrogant. Okay, because why? They don't believe in Hashem, or they believe that they're greater than Hashem. The Paras of our day, the Hamans of our day, Amalek, so on. Okay, these horrible taunts really do feel like daggers. We also have to be careful not to watch too much of the negative news, because it's in our bones. It affects us physically. Okay, it's a very physical word he used. He could have said it affects our soul, but it's in our dagger in our bones. Okay, that's our self, our body, the essence of ourself, the structure that holds us up. the skeleton. Okay. Don't take in too many of those daggers. We know what's going on. It's horrible. Yes, I want to suffer with my fellow Jews. I want to feel their pain, and then I want to be able to help them. And I don't even know how to explain this, what's going on emotionally. But I feel again that it's important to know what's going on without taking it into our bones. Okay. All right. If that makes sense. I don't know. Hopefully it makes sense. Okay, here we go. Ma tishtochachi nafshi, uma tehani alai, ho chili lelohi, ki ododenu yeshuos panai the Elohai. Okay. So again, why are you downcast, my soul? And why are you disturbed on my account? Another way of interpreting that is, why are you yearning for me? Hope to God. Anticipate God, okay? Hope to him. Because I shall yet thank him for the salvations of my countenance, and because he is my God. Okay. So we discussed this before, that this kind of verse was here, and there's a lot of repetitions in here. Okay. So in the Kehilas Ephraim, another source I wasn't familiar with, says in verse 6, it says his countenance, panav, that's his. Okay. Here it says my countenance, panai. Okay. This hints to the two tragedies of the long exile. The first is the spiritual, the concealment of panav, Hashem's countenance. Okay. The second is the tragedy of the physical and the material and what the world we live in, panai, my countenance. So Rav Hirsch says, we think there's a conflict between panav and panai, between God and me, between the spiritual and this body, this life. We think that Hashem's desires are different than ours. It's not exactly true that we don't have different desires, that we don't really align ourselves with the desires of Hashem. But really, Rav Hirsch says we're in total agreement, because when we start to immerse ourselves in the teachings of the tzaddikim, okay, sages, we see that Hashem's desires are good, and they're good for us. And in the future, Mashiach comes, we're going to realize this fully. Right now, nobody can realize this fully. What do I mean by that? So what I want to say is that now nobody can be perfectly aligned with Hashem 24/7. We all have times where we're not, some more than others. We're human, okay? So the idea is to pull ourselves more towards an understanding of Hashem, an understanding what Hashem wants, to make it a priority to reveal Hashem's glory in this world. That includes the Jewish people, it does, okay? And to remember that our yearning, our desire, the desires of our heart, okay, when they are desiring Hashem, that's an all-inclusive desire. It's a desire for the end to the Jew haters. It's a desire to the end of financial suffering. It's a desire to the end of ill health, God forbid. It's a desire for the end of our personal suffering, our national suffering, and the suffering of the world. There are people suffering in the world in general. There are, okay? I think that I remember reading that just a few weeks ago, like a whole bunch of radical, I don't know whether it was Boko Haram or somebody, slaughtered all these people in Africa. Maybe it was in the Sudan. I honestly can't remember. I should have checked first. I remember thinking, nobody's noticing the suffering, and they were slaughtering women and children. Nobody's noticing. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. All they care about is Jews defending themselves. Okay, here are all these people. Why aren't these people running to help these These poor people, women and children, don't care. They just want to attack Jews. So we know that we believe, we hope that very soon we will be greeting the Mashiach together, going up to the Beit HaMikdash together, arm in arm. If you're not sitting next to me, I hope to wave to you. Maybe I'll see you in another section, okay, in the Ezras Nashim, in the women's section. There'll probably be, it'll be so big, and we'll all be there. We'll all be dressed beautifully, and we'll all be happy because it will be an end to our personal and national exiles in our time. Okay, so we have completed Psalm 42. It took an hour. It was supposed to take half an hour. Couldn't help it. And now, hold on one second. You're welcome to turn on, and you're always welcome to turn on your video. And thank you, Hinda. Yes, amen. And hold on one second. I'm going to turn off the recording.